what I wanted to share today is for the fact that we sat and we listened to Brother Joel, and we have been blessed. As adults, we have been blessed. As adults, we have eaten. For those who have traveled on airplane, they have a thing to say. They have a thing to say that if there's an emergency and you see the oxygen mask comes down, they say to you, make sure you put the mask on yourself first. And after which, you make sure you put it on everyone who is next to you, your children, such like. And I'm going to look at it that we have just put the mask on ourselves first. But there's another member in the family that needs to be blessed by what we are being blessed by. And oftentimes we don't much talk about them. And I'm thinking about our children. So today's thought is going to be in alignment around our children. I really had some stuff to show you, but hopefully another time. I also wanted to highlight a couple of disclaimers here. That what I'm about to share, as best as I possibly can by the Spirit of God, I'm conscious that when I point the finger, the others are pointing back at me. And there are far more pointing back at me than pointing at you. So take that in consideration, that I'm not here pointing the finger just at you. I'm speaking to me, myself, far more, to a great extent. Right? And I also want to highlight that I'm not going to aim to fill the hour. I just want us to appreciate the spiritual message that the Lord has placed on my heart to share with you. Okay? All right. With that being said, we prayed already. So the first verse I thought of is Psalm 127, verse 4. So you'll have to know how to open your Bibles. Can't share this on the screen. So Psalm 127, verse 4. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. I want it to sink in, because that's where I'm going. The mighty man might never read this verse, but I'm telling you something. The mighty men of our world are conscious and are aware of the power of the youth. And it's for that reason they are making strenuous efforts to take our children. Okay? This says here that the children are like arrows. And a good arrow in its good instrument will fly straight, will carry the message, and will have its effect on its target. Okay? So take that into consideration as we move on. So my question then is, you see, in a home, I had actually the pictures. I'm gonna try to see if I can paint the pictures for you to see also, right? So in a home, right, you have your children. Your children are in this home. And my question is to us all, how well do we prepare our children before they leave home? How well do we prepare our children before they leave home? And yet there's another question. When do our children really leave home? Do they leave home at the age of 21? Or Sister Dan says no. Older Sister Dan? 6? Okay. What is that? Say it again? 60?
I was saying 5 or 6.
Or 5 or 6? Okay. So I did ask the question, do they leave above 21? Sister Dan doesn't agree. Age 17 to 21, anybody? Okay, nobody? As Sister Dan says, they leave very young, very young. But I really wanted to say to you that our children leave home at all ages. Okay? They may leave home to visit their friend's home. And you see, in their friend's home might not be the same environment as your home. At their friend's home, they may concentrate on things that are not necessarily spiritual as is conducted in your home. They may be introduced to food that you wouldn't have shared in your home. And how prepared are they that when they go to their friend's home, they may say to their friends that, you know, I do not partake of this or that. I will not watch this or that. I will not be engaged in this or that. And I'm not saying this just off the top of my lips. I remember, well, before I get to that one. So that is a friend zone. That's all in preparation to the friend zone. Your children may leave home to attend school. And how prepared are they when they leave to attend school? When my older son, was in year, I think probably 7 or 8, he they wanted to teach him in the literature lesson, they were giving him a book to read called The Demon Headmaster. And he came home and he said, Mom, Dad, at school today, they wanted me to read the book, The Demon Headmaster. But when I read the blur, I recognized it had nothing to do with a principal. It had nothing to do with a headmaster for school. It was all about the devil, he said to us. And he was in year 8. And he said to us that he said to his teacher, Miss, I cannot read this book. And she said to him, but it's just for a little while. It's just for your exam purpose. And he said to us as parents that his reply was, that may be the case, but what the message in the book will always be in my head. And it didn't stop there. That school brought us in as parents about the matter that he's not doing this, he does not want to read this book. And we agreed and supported our son. And so we said, when it comes, and you know what they were doing to him? When it came to the time to read the book, they were putting him to stand at the door outside of the classroom. And he came and reported that to us. And we contacted the school and says, as much as he doesn't want to do that, there are other books that he can read. And he could be sent to the library to do his reading. And so they somehow, praise God, they heeded to our request. And there was another book there that was more appropriate. And he read that book instead and did his exam on that book. And he came back and told us that he got a higher mark on the book he read above many of his classmates who read The Demon Headmaster. Okay? And again, we talk about preparing. How do we prepare our children when they leave home for school? Our youngest son came home. Now our older son is now 21, so he has moved on, praise God. But our youngest son came home and was facing not a book situation now, but in a lesson that they wanted to discuss about homosexuality and such like. And he was uncomfortable. And again, we had to approach the school about the matter. And again, we had to suggest, why not let him go to the library? And again, thanks be to God, they accepted. But the point is, I'm trying to say here, what if we had not had these discussions and prepare him? And when he goes out, when he leaves home and went to school, he did not have that preparation and that expectation. And so he would have just followed the norm and accepted the decision of his teacher and carried on. So I'm saying we have a duty here to spend time in preparing our children before they leave home. And I know I said children. And oftentimes when we say children, we think of the young ones. But I'm going to say to us, the older ones are still children, as old as they may be, right? And I'll come back to them in a little while. Now, some may leave home for other reasons. They may leave home to play in the park. They may leave home. Um, I tell you something, God is good, God is good. You know what I did? I'm going to pause to tell you why I know God is good. When I had this presentation done this morning, I was prompted, make a copy of it on your phone. so, so that's what I'm using to guide me here. So bear with me, because sometimes the phone wants to cut out. Right? So sometimes they may leave home to go play in the park. And in the park is another environment, a different environment, where all sorts of things are introduced and all sorts of people come to the park. And how prepared are they? Okay? Now, some parents take the effort in preparing their children. And this is how they see preparing their children. They may give them the latest clothing, brand name, because they want their children to fit in. And be patient with me, I'm getting somewhere, right? They may want their children to fit in. And so they may give them the best clothing, the most expensive clothing, the best brand name. And they will not, and that child, sometimes that child will not wear particular clothes unless it's of a particular brand. And they will not go to school on a non-uniform day if they're not wearing a particular clothes, because they're not prepared to be embarrassed by their peers. When they see their peers coming in their brand name, right? Some parents make the effort in preparing their children to get the best education. And they will say, you see, I want my child not to suffer the way I did. I want my child to have a better experience than I did. Right? Sorry, did something wrong there. Okay, right. And so for that reason, they will save, they will spend, they will do anything for that child to get that excellent education, as they call it. And that's how they think they're preparing their children. They're preparing their children for the world of work, right? Or they may try to prepare their children with giving them the best gadgets. And so this is how some parents see preparing their children. Or sometimes they let their children to have at their own will. They can play their games as long as they want to, as long as they're keeping quiet and they're out of my way. And not recognizing, in a sense, they are preparing their children, but not the right preparation. Now, I'm going to highlight a few Bible characters on how they went about preparing their children, all right, and see if we fall in any of these categories. I'm thinking of Eli as the first of the lot, all right, and Eli. When you look at Eli, if you were to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 12, in particular at this moment, 1 Samuel chapter 3 and verse 12, it says, in that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. That part of the verse alone suggests that there was something not right in Eli's home. And I don't need to go and find every verse to tell you who Eli was. You know, it says we know Eli was a priest. We know that Eli, is the background of Eli. But I just want to say something here. You know, I could be wrong about this, but I thought about his name, Eli, and then I remember when Christ was on the cross, he said, Eli, Eli, Eli. And then it was interpreted, my God, my God. I'm not 100% so sure if that's the meaning of his name, but it just dawned on me when I was looking at his name. And I was saying to myself, oh my, if there is any connection in this meaning, right? Eli then was supposed to be truly a man of God, a God man. But yet still, we read here that there was something concerning about the house of Eli. Now, when we read verse chapter, same First Samuel chapter 2 now, verse 12. Just going back a little, we learn something about his sons. It says, now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. Oh my goodness. A God man, and yet still his children did not know the Lord. And I know something here. It's not a matter that they did not know about the Lord, but they did not know the Lord. And I think about my own children. Do my children know the Lord, or are they only aware about the Lord? And why I said that they knew about the Lord, because when you read 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 3, it's going back a step further, back a step here. It says, and this man went up, which was Samuel's father, went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the two sons of Eli, of Phinehas and Phineas, the priest of the Lord, were there. So I know that these two boys knew about the Lord. But yet still, the verse we read earlier um, says to us that they were sons of Belial. And the son and Belial, when I looked that up, is in reference to Satan. They weren't even considered the sons of Eli. Oh, yeah, in a sense, yes, because part of the verse says they were sons of Eli. But here they were more associated, they were associated with the sons of Satan. Although they were in an environment, a godly environment, so to speak. They were in the presence of a man who was a priest, a man who was a God man, right? But yet still, they weren't prepared, because at the end of the day, we read earlier that God was very concerned about his home. Then when you go down to 1 Samuel 2, verse 17, it says, why was God so concerned about the house of Eli? Wherefore, the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for all men abhor the offering of the Lord. The sin of the men of these guys were great before the Lord. I'm here talking about our children. And I just wonder, for those of us in the room who have children, where are they now? Are they here sharing? When we had our break, when we had our first meal with Brother Joel, did we turn around and say to them, do you understand what Brother Joel said? How can I help you to understand? What's the benefit here? Because just as how we are being blessed, we want them to partake of this meal, right? This is one of the ways in preparing them. Then we look now finally on Eli, because it says here that in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17, notwithstanding, they hearken not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. It tells me something. Why wouldn't they not hearken? Was it a matter that they did not see that level of relationship with they did not see that level of relationship, the father's relationship with God, to that was of such respect that they in turn would want to respect God? Did they see in their father that he was not um, very careful about his spiritual life, that they themselves did not see the benefit of having this type of relationship with God, because they knew about him, but we read here they did not know him, and that's concerning, right? Do our children know him? Now, the next individual I want to look at, right, and how that person went about in preparing their child. I look at Anna. I look at Anna, and I look at her child Samuel. So when you look at First Samuel chapter 1 verses 26 and 28, it says here that and they the parents they slew a bullock and brought the child to Eli, and they said, "Oh my Lord, as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. And this child I prayed, and the Lord had given me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord." And he worshipped the Lord there. Just a moment. Now, I hope we took note of Hannah's approach in preparing her child. Hannah presented her child to the Lord. Do we make that effort to present our children to the Lord, whether they be 0 or 60? Do we make that effort to present our children to the Lord every time we go to pray? Or do we only pray about ourselves and our day and how the Lord, I want to bless me, and I want you to care for me, I want you to protect me in my going out and my coming in? But what about our children? No matter the age, child, I tell you something, as I said before, our children leave home at every age. And I tell you, when they come to visit at the age of 50, and they leave home again, when they come to visit, do we prepare them before they leave home? When they call us at the age of 60 or 40 or 20, do we prepare them before they hang up? Or do we only think of our children, when they are between 0 and 18? So I'm saying we have a work, we have a duty here. And if I repeat myself, bear with me. Okay. The next individual, no, I want to say something more about Hannah here before I move on. Um, it says in First Samuel 2 and verse 18, it says, "But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child, girded with a linen cloth ephod." You see how soon she started molding the mind of her child, right? He ministered before the Lord. Who are our children ministering before? Are they ministering before their peers? Do they find their relationship with their teacher more valuable than ours as parents? You know, when I read the story about Anna here, it made me think of my mother. She died 26 years ago, but praise be to God for something that she did. And she told me, you know, there came a time when I grew up and I left home, so to speak. And I was in training to become a teacher. And to make the story short, it came a time in my course, just about a year left to finish my course, they introduced a subject that I was not keen on doing because it would inflict on my relationship with Christ. And I left the institution. I just I felt like the disciples who left everything. That was my situation. I just walked out with my little bag, and I did not know where I was going. Really, because at the end of the day, my parents, after hearing what I did, well, not my parents, my father in particular, he has been forgiven on both sides here, but said to me not to come back home, not to visit the home, not you're no more part of us. However, I took the audacity to still visit, and when I went, I saw my mother, and she was alone at home. And my mother said to me, "You know, Wayne, when I heard what you did, I couldn't get angry with you. And you know why? Because when you were a child, you almost died. You were so sick and you almost died. And I said to the Lord, if you spare his life, Lord, I give him to you." And I said, man, I'm so glad you did that. You're an honor to me right now. You know, you're an honor to me. And for that reason, I moved on from that point, knowing who I belong to. No matter what has happened in my experience in my walk, I know who I belong to because of what my mother did. And I'm saying to us that it's not too late to present our children before the Lord as Anna did. No matter where they might have been and where they are now, present them to the Lord, because the enemy, as we read earlier, know that the children are a mighty weapon, a mighty arrow, and they are capitalizing and making every effort to have the hearts of our children. And I'm going to show you in a moment what I mean more clearly. Right. Let's watch the time too. Okay. Right. So that being said, so there are other characters I could look at, but I'm not going to elaborate on many of them right now in depth as I did for Eli and Anna. But I could think of Samuel. Here it is, another example, a holy man. But if you were to read Samuel, and I might as well I just do. Um, if you were to read about Samuel, where is that slide? Okay, if you turn to First Samuel chapter 8, it says that about Samuel's children. It says, and it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Pause there a bit. Samuel gave his children a sense of responsibility. That's a part of the preparation. Make our children have a sense of being responsible. Okay? Don't as parents, don't think that because your child say, you know, I'm so tired, I can't do this, I can't do that, and then you take it over, and they don't learn how to persevere and to press through the trial. They don't know how to not to give up, no matter how they're feeling at the moment, right? And sometimes you have to just, as it were, turn a blind eye, as it were, and let them carry on. And when it's all over and done, they will come back and say thanks later on, right? As I would say to my sons, I say to them, I'm creating memories, son. I'm creating memories. Little more from now, you're going to come back and refresh me of my memory of what I allowed you to endure today. I'm creating memories, right? So Samuel gave his children a sense of responsibility. But nevertheless, it carries on to say in verse 2, now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of the second was Abia. I hope I pronounce this properly. They were judges in Beersheba. Sadly, and his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after money, after lucre, and took bribes and perverted judgment. You know what that tells me? I'm being realistic. I'm preparing my children. I'm preparing my children, but I'm also conscious that they also it's there come a time when they will have to make their own decision eventually. But let it not be said that they made that decision because I failed to prepare. You understand what I'm saying? Let it not be said, because as in Samuel's case here, he tried, though they turned. In the case of Eli, not sure if he even tried. Well, we did read a verse, a lesson. We did read a verse where he, not today, but before, where he talked to his sons about what they were doing, but somehow they didn't take him seriously, right? But as parents, we still have a sense of responsibility. We still have we are still responsible to make every effort to get our children to be prepared for the real deal, which I haven't yet fully touched on it. But sorry, my screen just went. Okay, all right. Now I want to look at one other. I said there are many other characters I could look at. I could look at Abraham. I could look at Isaac. I could look at David. But for time, I'm going to just look at one more of these characters here. I'm looking at Amram and Jochebed, Jochebed, and her and their faithfulness, right? Um, Now, if you look at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, it says, "By faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment." How do we see our children? How do we speak to our children? This is another way of the preparation. Do we make them see that they are valuable, that you appreciate them, that they are a special being in the eyes of Christ? Or do we talk them down? Do we let them feel small at all times, let them feel inferior, let them feel, and so they turn to other sources to get their value formed? How do we see, or how do we make our children feel about their relationship with Christ and their relationship with us as parents? That's another part of that preparation I wanted to highlight. Now, this is where I really wish I could show you this. But anyway, I want to say to you that, you see, I told you earlier that a part of when our children leave home, they leave home to go to school. And I'm not guessing what I'm going to say to you now. I am stating what I'm going to say to you as facts. When your children go to school, how are they prepared in school? Many of us here might have the privilege of being in this classroom environment, the school environment, and see what the preparation is like. Many of us think that our children go to school to really learn about maths and science and English and such alike. But I want you to be aware that those, what we call as subjects that your kids are being taught, are only the avenue to get to your child what the true intent is. You know what your children are really taught in school? Be successful. Do well in your maths, do well in your science, do well, be successful. To get the good job, so you can get good pay, so you can get to the best university. This is the true message. When your child goes to the classroom, that's the true preparation they're enduring. But I want to say to us that God did not call us to be successful. God called us to be faithful. Let me repeat myself. God didn't call us to be successful. God made us to be faithful. They will not get that. They will not get faithfulness towards Christ. Okay? They have been taught. They have been taught about self-improvement, self-esteem. Okay, find your identity, right? How to be accepted, and recognition, and many more points, right? This is the main point that schools are based on when your child goes there. That's the form of preparation they endure, right? And when I talk about identity, let me say something to you right now. I know of a particular institution who will be preparing their staff, not for the sake of the staff only, but to take what this preparation to our children. And this is going to happen at this particular institution next week coming. Those who are preparing our trained to teach our children, this is what they're being cultured and taught to guide the minds of our children. So next week coming here at this particular institution, the teachers will be trained, and will be in a workshop, and this is the title of the workshop: Equality and Diversity, from Good Intentions to Positive Action. Okay? Equality and diversity, from good intentions to positive action. And the workshops are entitled Transgender, Neurodiversity, Recruitment, Free Your Subconscious Bias, Building Good Habits in Early Years. Are you listening to me? Culture inclusion, race and identity, positive attitude, and inclusive practice. And if I were to let you read what is expected in each of these workshops, I tell you something, you cry, right? It's not done there. I have to bring up something else here. I wanted to just show you, but let me just have to pause my screen here. Are you able to still see me? Because I shift my screen. Because somebody tell me.
Yes.
Brilliant. So that in that case, then I can still use my thing on my laptop here. All right. So this is what I really this one too. Now at this particular institution coming next week, it's the kids will be presented with, they say this month is Pride Month. Take pride, take pride in your true colors. On Monday, the kids will learn, familiarize yourself with the language. On Tuesday, educate yourself on the history of the LGBT activism. On Wednesday, discover the challenges facing the LGBT community today. On Thursday, get involved in the community and show your support. On Friday, stand up for what you believe in. Are you getting me? Are you understanding me? It's not a joke, brothers and sisters. It's not a joke. We are feeding ourselves and we are enjoying that food. But I'm telling you something, our children are in trouble. Our children are in, and I don't, this is not no one institution doing this. I can call on other teachers here, and I'm telling you something. They will tell us that in their environment is the same preparation for our children. And how are we preparing them to stand? How are we preparing them to stand? Right? Um, right. When you think about a soldier, when you think about a soldier, if you can form this picture in your head, a soldier is has goes to war, and he puts on his armor. and it may be the arm, his helmet, his breastplate. He has his weapon. He has his boots. We know that on the side of a Christian, we have a different warfare. It's called a spiritual warfare. When you read Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 to 13, it says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the wickedness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." We know that our armor is not as the soldiers of this world, because we are wrestling against it's a spiritual battle, and we know what the armor entails. To save time, I won't bother to recall them, but I wanted to highlight the point what the verse says. We are wrestling against rulers of the darkness. It's the rulers of the darkness who are the main instigators of implementing and the laws and whatever is required to ensure that our children are prepared in the way that they want them to be. We now, as parents, as Christian parents, have a greater responsibility, because we realize that even what the rulers are doing may have a physical effect, but it's a spiritual war, because it is the heart of our children that is being attacked here. Okay? When you think of the the children, the three Hebrew boys and Daniel, when they were taken into Babylon, you know what the king said in Daniel 1, verses 3 to 6? It says, "And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, and the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children, in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding and signs." I could read on. We know the story about these boys. But I'm telling you something, we know that these boys stood not because of their preparation while they were in Babylon, but because of their preparation before they entered Babylon. What the king was doing when he brought them to have a feast, it's called grooming. I was a part of a briefing, and they were reviewing the children performance. And I remember the ed teacher said, we only need two more to we need only two more to get a very high grade, and then we'll be okay with respect to when time comes for the school to be judged. From that, I realized that it's not so much that there is a true concern and care for all children. If the truth is, the school is pretty much like a factory. Those who come and show the wisdom and have knowledge, efforts will be made to have morning classes, after school lessons, in between. Every effort will be made to get them learn what they need to learn to be successful in the final exams. While all others, uh, a sign of effort is made, but just to ensure that they go through the system. This is something like similar to like what Daniel was doing here to these kids. He wanted the kids who are skillful, the kids who are smart, the kids who have an understanding in science, right? The same approach is being made today against our kids. I'm just sadly conscious of time also, so I'm gonna just make a jump here again. I'm gonna look at another aspect of what of where a breakdown has occurred in the preparation of our children and the effort to remove our dads, the effort to remove the fathers out of the picture in one way or the other. I remember when I was much younger, my brother used to sing this song. He says, "A fatherless child sure finds it hard when father is gone. Mama can do all the best she can, but mama can never do what daddy can. A fatherless child sure finds it hard when father is gone." And it is true the other way around too. But if you were to be fair, there are more fatherless children than motherless
Wayne, we
children.
can't hear you. Your mic.
Can't you hear me now?
I can hear him.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear him.
all right. So I was saying there are more fatherless children than motherless children, right? And one way or the other, an effort is made to get the fathers out of the picture. You know, when we read Psalm 132, verse 12, it says, "If thy children will keep my covenant and my testimony, that I shall teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore." A part of that teaching is it comes through the Father. If you notice I don't have this verse before me right now, but if you were to look back at it again, I think it's in Ephesians 6. It talks about husband loving their wives, loving their wife. But when it comes to the children, it says, "Father, don't provoke your children to wrath." He made an effort to show that there is a relationship between the father and the children. When you read Isaiah 3, verse 12, it says, "As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy path." You notice the father is missing out of this verse. When the father is missing, there's a particular type of leadership which is lost. When you read Isaiah 3, verse 4, "And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them." A part of that verse why I brought that up is to again to look back at where we started. When we talked about that the kings of this earth know that our children are like arrows, and they can mold them, they can groom them and form them into what they want them to be. They end up turning back at us as parents. They take what the parents counsel as with scant regard. It's what my teacher says that is important. It's what my peers say that is more important. And if and that happens, that occurs when we as parents have failed to make that rooted spiritual preparation that was required. But I say to us again, it's not late. We can still be on our knees praying without ceasing for our children. And coming down to an end, okay? Coming down to an end now. If home is where the heart is, our children will never leave home. I would never leave home in the first place. You know, I have a 21-year-old, and he no longer lives there at home, so to speak. But one of the things I notice that just about every other week or so, he comes home. And though sometimes when he comes home, he might not be fully engaged with the family, but I'm still conscious that he's home. And it tells me that there's something about home that he wants to be there. Even if he comes and sometimes spend times in his room. The fact is, he's here. It doesn't stay away forever. I brought this up because the home is supposed to be a loving environment that our children will always want to come home. Whether they go to school, they look forward to come back home. When they go to play with their friends, they look forward to come back home. When they go to play in the park, they look forward to come back home. When they have left home for their jobs and their other families, they want to come back home. And when they are living abroad, they're still coming home because they are constantly calling. They're calling as a sign that home is a loving environment and nowhere else is like home. I really hope that what I had to share, as much as I didn't get to cover all the bits and pieces, I really pray that it was sufficient, that you see the seriousness of the time we are living in, and that we do not take the time for granted. It's time for really wake up, brothers and sisters. We are losing our children. Go ahead, Craig, if you're ready.
If home is really where the heart is, then home must be a place that we all can share. For even with our differences, our hearts are much the same. And where love is, we come together there. Wherever there is laughter ringing, someone smiling, someone dreaming, we can live together there. Love will be your home. Where there are children singing, where a tender heart is beating, we can live together there. Love will be your home. With love, our hearts can be a family, and hope can bring this family face to face. And though we may be far apart, our hearts can be as one. When love brings us together in one place, wherever there is laughter ringing, someone smiling, someone dreaming, we can live together there. Love will be your home. Wherever there are words of kindness, where a vow is never broken, we can live together there. Love will be your home. 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 Wherever there is laughter ringing, someone smiling, someone dreaming, we can live together there. Love will be your home. Wherever there are children singing, where a tender heart is beating, we can live together there. Love will be